Welcome to the Forgotten Every Day. Please subscribe, it helps a lot. Now on to the story. The copper blade hesitates above the fish, just for a moment, the young apprentice's hand trembling slightly. He knows the head chef is watching. One careless cut, one bone left in the delicate white flesh, and 3 hours of careful preparation will be ruined. This fish, a Nile perch caught at dawn and rushed to the palace while still gleaming with river water, is destined for Pharaoh's evening meal. The apprentice has dreamed of this moment for months, the chance to prove himself worthy of working on the royal dishes. But now, with the knife in his hand and the weight of expectation pressing down, he realizes how much can go wrong. His mentor, the master fish preparer who has served in the royal kitchens for 30 years, steps closer, not to take over, but to place one weathered hand gently on the apprentice's shoulder. "Breathe," the old man whispers. "The fish is already dead. It cannot judge you. Only you can judge yourself. Now, remember what I taught you about following the bones." The apprentice nods, swallows, and makes the first cut. But to understand how we got here, to this moment of tension in the royal kitchens, we need to go back. Back before dawn, before the fish was even caught. Back to when the kitchen staff first began stirring in the pre-dawn darkness, beginning another day in service to the divine ruler of Egypt. The darkness before dawn in ancient Egypt is not quite absolute. There's a quality to it. A suggestion of the light that's coming, the faintest lightening of the eastern sky that tells those who know how to read it that morning approaches. In the servants' quarters near the royal kitchens, people are already waking, not with alarm clocks or electric lights, but with the internal rhythms developed over years of rising at the same hour, with the gentle stirring of those whose bodies have learned when dawn is near. The head chef, a man named Pharaoh, who bears the title overseer of the royal table, is always first to awake. He has held this position for 15 years, appointed by Pharaoh himself after demonstrating not just culinary skill, but the organizational genius required to feed a royal household. His responsibilities are vast, coordinating dozens of workers, managing supplies from across Egypt and beyond, ensuring that every meal meets not just standards of taste, but of religious purity and symbolic appropriateness. He rises from his sleeping mat, performs his morning ablutions with the water left in a basin the night before, and dresses in the clean white linen that marks his status. Before leaving his quarters, he pauses at a small shrine, makes a brief offering to Hathor, goddess of joy and abundance, asking for her blessing on the day's work. These morning prayers are not just religious obligation, but psychological preparation, a moment of centering before the controlled chaos of the royal kitchens begins. The kitchen complex itself is remarkable, a series of interconnected spaces built at some distance from the main palace to keep smoke and cooking smells away from Pharaoh's living quarters, but close enough for food to be transported while still hot. The main cooking area is large, high-ceilinged to allow smoke to rise and escape through vents near the roof. Along the walls, bread ovens of different sizes, their domed shapes like small buildings within the building. Open hearths for roasting meat and cooking stews. Work tables made of stone, scarred by years of chopping and pounding. Storage areas for grains, dried fish, amphoras of oil and wine, baskets of vegetables and fruits. But at this pre-dawn hour, the kitchens are still mostly dark, mostly quiet. Tamaz walks through the spaces, checking, always checking. The grain storage, making sure the bins are properly sealed against mice and insects. The oil amphoras, ensuring none have leaked or been improperly sealed. The meat storage area, a cooler room, partially underground where yesterday's deliveries hang, checking for any sign of spoilage in this climate where heat can turn fresh meat bad within hours. He finds one joint of beef that concerns him, not spoiled yet, but with a scent that suggests it soon will be. He removes it, sets it aside for the servants' meals, and marks on his mental list that he needs to speak to the meat supplier about delivery times. In the royal kitchens, standards are absolute. Food that would be perfectly acceptable in any other household in Egypt is not good enough for Pharaoh's table. Other workers begin arriving. The bread bakers come first. They need to start their work earliest because bread, the foundation of every Egyptian meal, takes time to prepare. They're mostly women, bread making being one of the few kitchen tasks traditionally assigned to female workers. They move with practiced efficiency, checking the grain bins, measuring out the emmer wheat that will be ground into flour, preparing the sourdough starters that give Egyptian bread its characteristic tangy flavor. The head baker, an older woman named Mutemwia, who has worked in the palace since she was a girl, greets Ptolemy's with a respectful nod. "The grain from the new shipment is good," she reports. "Fine texture, no weevils. It will make excellent bread for the morning meal." Ptolemy's nods his approval. The quality of grain is crucial, not just for taste, but for the very functioning of the kingdom. Grain is currency in Egypt, the means by which workers are paid, the measure of wealth and power. That the palace receives the finest grain is not luxury, but necessity, a symbol of Pharaoh's status, his connection to Ma'at, the divine order that must be maintained through proper observance of every ritual and custom. As the bread bakers begin their work, grinding grain in stone mortars, the rhythmic sound of pestle against stone creating a percussion that will continue through much of the morning, other workers filter in. The butchers, men with strong arms and sharp knives, who will break down the larger cuts of meat into portions appropriate for royal dishes. The vegetable preparers, young men and women who will wash, peel, chop the produce that arrives daily from the palace gardens and from farms throughout the Delta. The organization of labor in the royal kitchens is sophisticated, reflecting Egypt's society's love of hierarchy and specialization. There are workers who do nothing but prepare bread, others who specialize in meat, still others who focus on fish, on vegetables, on fruits and sweets. Within each category, there are further specializations. Among the bread bakers, some focus on the fine white bread preferred for Pharaoh's table. Others make the coarser barley bread for servants. Still others specialize in the elaborate shaped breads used in religious ceremonies. This specialization ensures quality, each worker developing deep expertise in their particular domain. But it also requires careful coordination. Holmes moves through the kitchens like a general, surveying his troops, checking progress, answering questions, making small adjustments to the day's plans. He carries in his head a complex schedule, knowing that the morning meal must be ready at a specific time, that preparations for the midday meal must begin before the morning meal is finished, that the evening feast, tonight's most important meal, requires ingredients that take hours to prepare properly. The fish apprentice arrives with a group of other junior workers, young men in their teens or early 20s who are learning various kitchen crafts. They're assigned to different stations, some to help with vegetable preparation, others to assist the butchers, a few to work with the pastry makers who will create the sweet confections that conclude royal meals. The apprentice is assigned to the fish station, a privilege that reflects his growing skill, fish preparation being considered one of the more refined kitchen arts. His mentor, the master fish preparer named Amenhotep, is already at work. He's a thin man, weathered by years of early mornings and long days, but his hands are sure and his eye sharp. On his work table, several fish are laid out, gifts from the Nile delivered just before dawn by fishermen who catch specifically for the royal table. There are Nile perch, their scales still gleaming, catfish with their distinctive whiskers, tilapia of the type that Egyptians have been eating since immemorial.
Good, you're here, Amenhotep says without looking up from the fish he's examining. We have a special challenge today. Pharaoh has requested fish for the evening meal, but not just any fish. He wants Nile perch prepared in the style of his childhood, the way his mother's cook used to make it. Do you know what that means? The apprentice shakes his head, nervous but attentive. It means we cannot simply prepare good fish. We must prepare perfect fish, fish that evokes memory, emotion, connection to the past. This requires not just skill, but intuition, understanding not just the fish, but the eater of the fish. Amenhotep finally looks up, his eyes serious. Are you ready for this responsibility? The apprentice nods, though his stomach tightens with anxiety. This is both opportunity and test. Success could advance his career significantly. Failure, well, failure in the royal kitchens is not tolerated. As the pre-dawn darkness gives way to the first real light, the kitchens become a hive of coordinated activity. The bread bakers have their dough mixed, are forming it into loaves of various shapes and sizes. Some are simple round loaves, others are formed into cones or triangles or elaborately braided shapes. Each shape has its purpose, its place in the hierarchy of meals. The finest, most delicate breads will go to Pharaoh's table. The coarser varieties will feed the hundreds of palace workers, servants, guards, scribes, all of whom must eat daily from palace provisions. The ovens are heating now, fueled with wood that has been carefully selected and dried. The temperature of an oven is crucial. Too hot, and bread burns on the outside while remaining raw inside. Too cool, and it never develops the proper crust. The bakers know their ovens intimately, can judge temperature by sight and feel, knowing exactly when conditions are right for baking. While bread bakes, filling the kitchen with its warm, yeasty aroma, work continues on other elements of the morning meal. Beer is being prepared, though calling it beer in the modern sense is perhaps misleading. Egyptian beer is thick, nutritious, more like liquid bread than what we think of as beer today. It's made from partially baked bread loaves that are crumbled into water with dates for sweetness, then left to ferment. The resulting beverage is cloudy, slightly sweet, mildly alcoholic, drunk by everyone from Pharaoh to the lowliest worker, though naturally the quality and strength vary with status. The beer makers work in their own area, managing large ceramic vats where yesterday's brews are fermenting, checking on batches that will be ready today, starting new batches that will mature for tomorrow or the next day. Beer, like bread, cannot be rushed. The fermentation happens at its own pace, and attempting to hurry it results only in poor quality beverage. For Pharaoh's morning meal, the beer is specially filtered, strained through fine lemon until it's clearer than the common variety, then flavored with honey and lotus blossoms. This transformation of ordinary beer into something worthy of divine royalty is typical of the royal kitchen's approach, taking the basic foods that all Egyptians eat and elevating them through superior ingredients, careful preparation, refined techniques. Vegetables are being prepared for the morning meal as well. Onions, which the Egyptians eat at every meal from the highest to the lowest, lettuces, crisp and fresh from the palace gardens, cucumbers, their cool flesh perfect for the heat of the Egyptian morning. These are not cooked but served fresh, arranged artfully on fine ceramic platters. The vegetable preparers work quickly but carefully. Each slice of cucumber must be uniform, each lettuce leaf perfectly cleaned of any dirt or insects, each onion ring arranged with geometric precision. The morning meal for Pharaoh, though simpler than the evening feast, is still substantial. It typically includes fresh bread, both white wheat bread and perhaps some barley bread for variety, fresh vegetables and fruits, dried fish or cold roasted meat left from previous meals, dates and figs, honey cakes, milk or beer to drink. This meal must be ready when Pharaoh wakes, which varies slightly from day to day, but is usually shortly after dawn.
Thomas receives word from a palace messenger that Pharaoh is stirring, beginning his morning rituals. This means the food must be ready to serve within the hour. He makes a quick circuit of the kitchen, checking on all the elements. The bread is coming out of the ovens now, crusty and golden. The baker's using long wooden paddles to remove the hot loaves. The beer has been filtered and flavored, poured into fine stone vessels for serving. The vegetables are arranged, the cold meats sliced. Fresh grapes have been washed, dates sorted and arranged in bowls, figs displayed on their own special platters. But the morning meal is only the beginning. Even as servers are carrying the breakfast foods to Pharaoh's quarters, work is beginning on the midday meal. This meal, eaten at the height of the day's heat, is usually lighter than evening, but still requires careful preparation. Fish might be grilled over hot coals, vegetables stewed with onions and garlic, fresh bread baked, beer and water kept cool in porous ceramic jars where evaporation provides natural refrigeration. The fish apprentice is learning that working in the royal kitchens means constant motion, constant attention. There's no time for rest or daydreaming. As soon as the morning fish dishes are complete, work begins on the midday preparations. Amenhotep is teaching him the art of grilling fish, how to judge when the coals are the right temperature, how to know when fish is perfectly cooked, that moment when the flesh just begins to flake but hasn't yet dried out. Feel the heat, Amenhotep instructs, holding his hand palm down above the coals at the height where the fish will cook. Count slowly to 5. If you can reach 5 comfortably, the heat is right. If you must pull away before 5, too hot. If you can go past 5 easily, too cool. The apprentice practices this, learning to read temperature without any instrument but his own hand, his own judgment. This is the kind of knowledge that cannot be written down, that passes only from master to student through demonstration and practice, through years of experience accumulated into intuition. Around the kitchens, similar transmission of knowledge is occurring. An older baker shows a younger one how to judge dough texture by feel, explaining that dough mixed on a humid day needs less water than dough mixed when the air is dry, teaching the subtle art of adjustment that makes the difference between adequate bread and excellent bread. A butcher demonstrates the proper angle for cutting meat across the grain, showing how this simple change in technique makes cheaper cuts more tender, more suitable for royal consumption. The midday meal is served, and immediately preparations intensify for evening. This is the main meal, the feast, the meal at which Pharaoh might entertain guests, at which the royal family gathers, at which the full splendor of the royal kitchen's capabilities must be displayed. Tonight's menu is ambitious, reflecting Pharaoh's request for his childhood favorite, along with the elaborate dishes expected at a formal royal meal. The main courses will include the special Nile perch, roasted goose, beef ribs slowly braised until the meat falls from the bone, roasted duck with a honey glaze. Vegetables will include lentil stew flavored with coriander and cumin, roasted garlic cloves, fresh lettuce and cucumber salad. Onions prepared 3 different ways. There will be multiple types of bread, from the finest white wheat to special breads flavored with sesame seeds or dates. For dessert, cakes made with honey and nuts, fresh grapes and figs, dates stuffed with ground almonds, a special sweet made with tiger nuts that have been ground into a paste, mixed with honey, and formed into small confections. The scale of preparation is enormous. The beef ribs, for example, must be marinated for hours before cooking. The marinade is a complex mixture. wine and beer for liquid, onions and garlic for flavor, ground cumin and coriander for spice, a touch of honey for balance, salt from the Nile Delta, pepper imported at great expense from distant lands. A junior cook is assigned to massage this marinade into the meat, working it into every crevice, ensuring that when the ribs finally cook, every bite will be infused with flavor. The goose requires different preparation. First, it must be plucked, a tedious task assigned to the lowest-ranking kitchen workers. Then it must be singed over flame to remove any remaining pin feathers, cleaned thoroughly inside and out, rubbed with salt and left to rest, allowing the salt to penetrate the meat and enhance its flavor. Later, it will be stuffed with onions and herbs, rubbed with fat, roasted over coals carefully tended to maintain even heat. The timing must be perfect. Goose is best when the skin is crispy and the meat is tender but not dried out. But it's the fish, the special request, that receives the most attention. Amenhotep explains the preparation to his apprentice in detail. The fish must be cleaned perfectly, every scale removed, every bone that can be taken out without destroying the structure of the meat must be removed. We fillet it, but keep the fillets whole, no breaking, no tearing. Then we marinate it, not long, perhaps half an hour, in a mixture of beer and herbs. The beer tenderizes and flavors. The herbs, we use dill and coriander today, add complexity. The apprentice listens intently, watching as Amenhotep demonstrates each step on one fish before allowing him to attempt the same on another. After marinating, we brush with sesame oil, very lightly, just enough to keep it from sticking to the cooking surface. Then we cook it on hot stones that have been heating in the fire for an hour, smooth river stones that hold heat evenly. The fish cooks quickly on these stones, maybe 4 minutes one side, 3 minutes the other. We watch for the moment when the flesh just begins to turn opaque, when you can see the layers of muscle fibers separating slightly. That's when we flip it. It sounds simple in description, but the apprentice knows it's anything but. The timing must be perfect, the temperature exactly right, the handling gentle enough not to break the delicate flesh. This is why he trembles slightly when Amenhotep finally says, "Now you try. This fish is for tonight's meal. Make it perfect." And so we return to our opening moment. The apprentice with knife poised, the weight of expectation, the opportunity in danger. He makes the first cut, following the line his mentor has shown him, feeling for bones with his fingertips as the knife moves through flesh. It's going well, the fillet coming away clean, and he allows himself a small breath of relief. But the work is far from over. The fish must be fully prepared, marinated, cooked at exactly the right moment, delivered to Pharaoh's table at the precise temperature and timing. One success does not guarantee the next. The apprentice refocuses, finishing the filleting with increasing confidence, then moving on to the marination under Amenhotep's watchful eye. As afternoon progresses toward evening, the kitchen reaches its peak of activity. Every station is working at full capacity. The bread ovens are producing loaves continuously, the bakers pulling out finished bread, inserting new loaves in a constant rhythm. The beer makers are filtering and pouring, ensuring adequate supply, not just for Pharaoh's table, but for all the guests who will attend tonight's feast. The meat stations are controlled chaos. The beef ribs are in their braising pots now, large ceramic vessels nestled among coals, the liquid bubbling gently as the meat slowly tenderizes. The geese are on their spits, rotating slowly over carefully tended fires, the cooks basting them regularly with a mixture of beer and fat to keep the meat moist and add flavor.
The ducks are being prepared, their skin scored in a crosshatch pattern that will allow fat to render out during cooking, making the skin crispy while the meat remains succulent. The vegetable preparations are equally intense. Lentils simmer in large pots, their earthy aroma mixing with the scent of onions being caramelized in rendered goose fat. Garlic cloves, each one carefully peeled, are being roasted whole until they become sweet and buttery. Fresh vegetables are being cut just before serving to maintain their crispness, their color, their vital essence. The dessert station is perhaps the most intricate. Here, skilled workers are creating edible art. Honey cakes are being formed, the dough pressed into molds that will give them decorative shapes, flowers and animals and geometric patterns. Date paste is being carefully wrapped around ground almonds, each piece formed into a perfect sphere, arranged on gold-trimmed platters. The tiger nut confections are being shaped by hand, rolled into small cylinders, dusted with ground cinnamon imported from distant lands. Patamis moves through all of this, tasting, adjusting, solving problems as they arise. The beef ribs are cooking more slowly than ideal. He orders more coals added to increase heat. One of the geese is browning unevenly. He instructs the cook to rotate it more frequently. A batch of bread has come out slightly overdone, acceptable for the servant's meal, but not for the royal table. He directs it to be set aside and a new batch to be prepared. His ability to maintain overall vision while attending to minute details is what makes him exceptional at his role. He can taste a sauce and know immediately that it needs more cumin, less salt. He can glance at a roasting bird and know whether the fire is too hot, too cool, just right. He can smell bread in the oven and know if it will be ready in 5 minutes or 10. These skills, developed over decades of practice, cannot be taught directly, but must be learned through long experience under the guidance of masters. As the sun begins its descent toward the western horizon, the final preparations intensify. This is the critical period, when all the various elements must come together, when timing becomes everything. The fish, which will be cooked last to ensure it arrives at the table at peak freshness, is ready for its final preparation. The apprentice has done his work well. The fillets are perfect, properly marinated, brushed with oil, waiting only for the cooking stones to reach optimal temperature. Amenhotep checks the stones, holding his hand above them, counting. At the count of 5, he nods with satisfaction. Perfect. Now, place the fish, gently, let the stone do the work. Don't press or move it, just let it cook. The apprentice places the first fillet on the hot stone. It sizzles immediately, the smell of cooking fish rising, delicious and promising. He watches the flesh, seeing the gradual change from translucent to opaque, creeping up from the bottom toward the top. Amenhotep is beside him, not interfering, but ready to guide if needed. Watch the color change, see how it moves up through the meat. When it reaches 2/3 of the way through, that's when we flip. The moment comes. The apprentice slides a thin bronze spatula under the fillet, lifts carefully, feeling the weight, the delicate structure, and flips it. The fish lands perfectly. The cooked side now facing up, beautifully marked by the stone, the color golden and appetizing. The second side will cook more quickly, already partially cooked by heat conducting through the fillet. Another minute maybe, less. Now, Amenhotep says quietly. The apprentice slides the spatula under again, lifts the fillet, transfers it to a waiting platter lined with fresh lettuce leaves. It looks beautiful, exactly as it should, cooked perfectly. He allows himself a moment of pride before beginning the next fillet. There are 6 more to prepare, and each one must be as perfect as the first. In the serving area, adjacent to the kitchen, but separated by a corridor that helps keep cooking smells from overwhelming the dining space,
Servers are preparing for their role in tonight's feast. These are specially trained workers, selected for their grace and discretion, taught the elaborate protocols of royal service. They know how to carry heavy platters without visible strain, how to serve from the left and remove from the right, how to pour beer or wine without spilling, how to move silently and efficiently, to be nearly invisible while remaining attentive to every need. The head server, a thin man named Seneb who moves with dancer-like grace, is reviewing the evening service with his team. Remember, Pharaoh eats first, always. No other plate is touched until his hand moves toward food. When serving beer, the vessel must never touch the rim of the cup. When clearing, wait for the signal from the royal steward. Never move to clear until signaled, even if the plate appears finished. These elaborate protocols are not mere formality. They're part of the religious and social order that maintains Egypt's stability. Pharaoh was not simply a king, but a living god, a divine being whose person and possessions are sacred. To serve him is to participate in divine ritual, requiring purity of body and mind, precise adherence to established custom. Any deviation, even minor, is potentially disruptive to Ma'at, the cosmic order that must be maintained through correct action. The servers wear special garments for royal service, the finest white linen, so clean it almost glows in the lamplight. They've bathed and shaved, applied oils that are scented but not overpowering, adorned themselves with the symbols of their office, the serving staff's medallions that identify them as authorized to enter royal presence. They're as carefully prepared as the food they'll serve, understanding that they're not just delivering meals, but participating in sacred ritual. Back in the kitchen, the final dishes are being completed. The beef ribs, after hours of slow braising, have reached perfect tenderness, the meat pulling away from the bone with just the touch of a fork. They're arranged on a massive platter, the bones artfully crossed, the sauce reduced to a rich glaze that coats each rib. Garnished with fresh herbs, they look as good as they smell. The roasted geese are done, their skin crispy and golden, their meat tender and juicy. They're carved with practiced skill, each piece precisely cut, the white meat separated from the dark, arranged to display both the beauty of the bird and the skill of its preparation. The duck is similarly perfect, its honey glaze giving it an almost lacquered appearance, the scored skin crispy and rendered of fat. The lentil stew has been cooking for hours, the lentils broken down into a creamy consistency, the spices perfectly balanced. It's ladled into fine ceramic bowls, topped with a swirl of sesame oil and a sprinkle of fresh herbs. The roasted garlic cloves, soft and sweet, are arranged around fresh bread on their own platter. The salads are assembled at the last minute, crisp lettuce, cool cucumber, sharp onions, dressed with a simple mixture of beer vinegar and oil. And finally, the fish. All 7 fillets are cooked perfectly, each one a testament to skill and care. They're arranged on a single large platter, garnished with fresh dill, accompanied by a sauce made from beer, butter, and herbs. This is the centerpiece of tonight's meal, the dish specifically requested by Pharaoh, the preparation that will be judged most carefully. Ptolemais does his final inspection. He walks along the line of completed dishes, looking, smelling, occasionally tasting. A small adjustment here, a garnish repositioned there, but overall he's satisfied. This is work worthy of the royal table. He nods to Seneb, ready to serve. The servers move into action. Each dish is carried with proper ceremony, the procession of food moving from kitchen to serving area to dining hall. This isn't rushed, there's a dignity to the movement, a recognition that this food represents hours of labor, generations of accumulated knowledge, the finest ingredients Egypt can provide. It's more than nutrition, it's art, ritual, expression of cosmic order made manifest in perfectly prepared cuisine. In the dining hall, Pharaoh is seated with his family and select guests. The room is lit with hundreds of oil lamps, their gentle golden light creating an atmosphere of warmth and abundance. Musicians play softly in one corner,
the sound of lute and harp and hand drums providing pleasant background without overwhelming conversation. Incense burns, adding its sweet smoke to the air, mingling with the arriving aromas of food. The service proceeds with practiced elegance. Each dish is presented, offered to Pharaoh first, then distributed to the other diners according to rank and protocol. The fish, the star of the meal, arrives on its platter. Seneb himself carries it, presenting it to Pharaoh with a small bow. Pharaoh looks at the fish, and something in his expression softens. Perhaps he's remembering childhood, his mother, happier times before the weight of divine kinship settled on his shoulders. He takes a piece, tastes it, and nods slowly. "This is good, this is very good. My compliments to the kitchen staff, especially to whoever prepared this fish. It's exactly as I remember." Back in the kitchen, Amenhotep receives word of Pharaoh's approval. He turns to his apprentice, allows himself a small smile. "You did well today. Tomorrow we begin teaching you sauces." The apprentice, exhausted but elated, bows his head in gratitude. He's proven himself worthy, taken one more step in his journey from raw beginner to master craftsman. In time, perhaps many years from now, he might stand where Amenhotep stands, teaching his own apprentices, passing on the knowledge that has been passed to him. The meal continues for hours. Course follows course. Each one met with appreciation, with careful attention, with the recognition that what's being consumed represents not just food, but the accumulated skill of dozens of workers, the finest ingredients from throughout Egypt and beyond, the maintenance of traditions stretching back thousands of years. The desserts arrive. The honey cakes and date confections and tiger nut sweets. They're eaten slowly, savored, the final notes in this elaborate culinary symphony. Fresh fruit provides a light ending. Grapes and figs and melons, their natural sweetness a perfect conclusion to the feast. Finally, as the evening grows late, the meal ends. Pharaoh retires, satisfied, his request for a taste of childhood fulfilled, his divine appetite appeased. The guests disperse, the servants begin clearing. In the kitchen, the work of cleanup begins. This is less glamorous than preparation, but no less important. The stone cooking surfaces must be cleaned while still hot, scrubbed with sand and water until every trace of food is removed. The ovens must be swept out, their fires safely banked for the night. The ceramic vessels must be washed, dried, returned to their proper storage places. The work tables must be scrubbed, the floors swept, everything made ready for tomorrow's service. Petmos walks through the kitchen one final time, checking that all is in order. He's tired. The day has been long, demanding, but there's satisfaction in a day's work well done. Every meal served without incident, every dish prepared to standard, every worker performing their role properly. This is success in the royal kitchens. Not dramatic or exciting, simply the quiet satisfaction of maintaining excellence, day after day, meal after meal, year after year. The kitchen workers finish their tasks and head to their quarters. Tomorrow they'll rise again before dawn, begin again the cycle of preparation and service. The bread will be baked, the beer brewed, the vegetables chopped, the meat roasted. All of it performed with the same care and attention that characterized today's work. This is their life, their profession, their contribution to the smooth functioning of the royal household, and by extension, to the cosmic order itself. The apprentice fish preparer lies on his sleeping mat, replaying the day in his mind. The moment of anxiety with the knife, the careful filleting, the perfect cooking, Pharaoh's approval. He knows he's incredibly fortunate, learning from a master like Amenhotep, working in the royal kitchens where the standards are highest and the opportunities for advancement real. If he continues to work hard, to learn, to perfect his craft, he might one day be a master himself, teaching his own apprentices, passing on the traditions that have shaped Egyptian cuisine for millennia. In the darkness of the servants' quarters, the sounds of others settling for sleep, the young man smiles. Tomorrow, he'll learn about sauces. His education continues. The journey from apprentice to master is long, demanding, but today he took one significant step forward. The fish was perfect. Pharaoh approved. That knowledge carries him gently into sleep. The meal continues for hours. Course follows course, each one met with appreciation, with careful attention, with the recognition that what's being consumed represents not just food, but the accumulated skill of dozens of workers, the finest ingredients from throughout Egypt and beyond, the maintenance of traditions stretching back thousands of years. The desserts arrive, the honey cakes and date confections and tiger nut sweets. They're eaten slowly, savored, the final notes in this elaborate culinary symphony. Fresh fruit provides a light ending. Grapes and figs and melons, their natural sweetness, a perfect conclusion to the feast. Finally, as the evening grows late, the meal ends. Pharaoh retires, satisfied, his request for a taste of childhood fulfilled, his divine appetite appeased. The guests disperse, the servants begin clearing. In the kitchen, the work of cleanup begins. This is less glamorous than preparation, but no less important. The stone cooking surfaces must be cleaned while still hot, scrubbed with sand and water until every trace of food is removed. The ovens must be swept out, their fires safely banked for the night. The ceramic vessels must be washed, dried, returned to their proper storage places. The work tables must be scrubbed, the floors swept, everything made ready for tomorrow's service. But Thomas walks through the kitchen one final time, checking that all is in order. He's tired. The day has been long, demanding. But there's satisfaction in a day's work well done. Every meal served without incident, every dish prepared to standard, every worker performing their role properly. This is success in the royal kitchens. Not dramatic or exciting, simply the quiet satisfaction of maintaining excellence day after day, meal after meal, year after year. The kitchen workers finish their tasks and head to their quarters. Tomorrow they'll rise again before dawn, begin again the cycle of preparation and service. The bread will be baked, the beer brewed, the vegetables chopped, the meat roasted. All of it performed with the same care and attention that characterize today's work. This is their life, their profession, their contribution to the smooth functioning of the royal household, and, by extension, to the cosmic order itself. The apprentice fish preparer lies on his sleeping mat, replaying the day in his mind. The moment of anxiety with the knife, the careful filleting, the perfect cooking, Pharaoh's approval. He knows he's incredibly fortunate, learning from a master like Amenhotep, working in the royal kitchens where the standards are highest and the opportunities for advancement real. If he continues to work hard, to learn, to perfect his craft, he might one day be a master himself, teaching his own apprentices, passing on the traditions that have shaped Egyptian cuisine for millennia. In the darkness of the servants' quarters, the sounds of others settling for sleep, the young man smiles. Tomorrow, he'll learn about sauces. His education continues. The journey from apprentice to master is long, demanding, but today he took one significant step forward. The fish was perfect. Pharaoh approved. That knowledge carries him gently into sleep. The palace itself settles into nighttime quiet. In the royal quarters, Pharaoh lies in his bed, perhaps thinking about the meal he just enjoyed. That taste of childhood, of simpler times, of his mother's love expressed through food. For a few moments tonight, despite all the formality and protocol that surrounds his divine person, he was simply a man remembering his childhood, finding comfort in familiar flavors, connecting through food to memories and emotions that transcend his status as God King. This is perhaps the ultimate achievement of the royal kitchens. Not just the technical excellence of their preparations, not just the organizational sophistication that allows them to produce multiple elaborate meals daily, but their ability to create food that nourishes not just the body, but the soul. Food that provides comfort, creates memories, maintains traditions. Food that connects past to present, that grounds divine royalty in human experience. The art of royal food preparation in ancient Egypt was more than just cooking. It was a complex system involving agriculture, trade, religion, social hierarchy, scientific knowledge, artistic expression, in genuine care for those being fed. Every meal represented the work of dozens of people, from the farmers who grew the grain to the fishermen who caught the fish, from the bakers who made the bread to the servers who carried it to table, from the administrators who organized it all to the craftspeople who created the vessels and implements used in preparation and service. Understanding this system, appreciating the skill and dedication it required, gives us insight into ancient Egyptian culture more broadly. The Egyptians valued order, precision, proper execution of established procedures. They believed that maintaining ma'at, cosmic order, required attention to detail in every aspect of life, including food preparation. The elaborate protocols of the royal kitchen weren't arbitrary formalities, but expressions of deeper beliefs about the nature of reality and humanity's place in it. The specialization we see in the royal kitchens, with different workers focusing on bread or meat or fish or vegetables, reflects Egyptian society's broader organizational sophistication. They understood that excellence comes from focused expertise, that by allowing workers to develop deep skill in specific areas, the overall quality of output improves. This principle, which we recognize in modern specialized labor, was already well established in ancient Egypt 3,000 years ago. The transmission of knowledge from master to apprentice, the years of patient learning required to master a craft, this too reflects important Egyptian values. They understood that some knowledge cannot be quickly acquired, that expertise requires time, practice, mentorship. The young fish preparer's journey from anxious apprentice to confident craftsman will take years, even decades. But the knowledge he gains, the skill he develops, will be valuable not just to him, but to Egyptian society, ensuring that the traditions of excellent cuisine continue into future generations. The economic aspects of royal food preparation in ancient Egypt were substantial. The palace had to maintain relationships with suppliers throughout Egypt and beyond, ensuring reliable access to the finest ingredients. They had to employ and pay dozens of kitchen workers, from the head chef to the lowest scullery worker. They had to maintain facilities, purchase equipment and supplies, manage inventory. The scale of the operation was enormous, representing a significant portion of the palace's overall budget. But this expense was justified not just by the practical need to feed the royal household, but by the symbolic importance of royal meals. Pharaoh's abundance,
His ability to provide elaborate feasts demonstrated his divine power, his connection to the gods who ensured Egypt's prosperity. When foreign ambassadors were entertained with spectacular meals, when nobles and officials were fed from the royal kitchens, this reinforced Pharaoh's status and legitimacy. Food was power, and the royal kitchens were engines of that power. The religious dimensions of food preparation in ancient Egypt were significant. Certain foods were associated with particular gods. Certain preparations had ritual significance. The cleanliness required in the royal kitchens was not just about food safety, but about ritual purity. Workers had to be properly purified, had to avoid certain foods or activities that would render them ritually unclean. The act of preparing and serving food to Pharaoh, as a living god, was itself a religious act, requiring proper reverence and correct execution. This connection between food and religion extended to the ingredients themselves. The beer used in cooking and drinking was associated with Osiris, god of agriculture and renewal. Bread was the staff of life, the foundation of existence given by the gods to sustain humanity. Meat from sacrificial animals carried the blessing of the gods. Even vegetables and fruits grown from earth blessed by the Nile's inundation were seen as gifts from divine forces. The aesthetics of ancient Egyptian royal cuisine are worth contemplating. The care taken with presentation, the attention to color and arrangement, the use of fine serving vessels and implements, all of this shows that the Egyptians understood that food appeals to multiple senses, that visual beauty enhances the eating experience. The elaborate shapes of breads, the artistic arrangement of dishes on platters, the use of garnishes and decorative elements, these weren't just showing off, but reflected a genuine appreciation for beauty, for the pleasure that comes from eating food that looks as good as it tastes. The seasonal variations in ancient Egyptian cuisine would have been pronounced. Unlike modern diners who expect all foods to be available year-round, ancient Egyptians ate according to what was seasonally available. The flooding season brought different foods than the growing season or the harvest season. The royal kitchens had to adapt their menus to work with what was available, though their access to stored and preserved foods, to imports from other regions, to greenhouse-like growing techniques gave them more flexibility than ordinary households enjoyed. The preservation techniques used to extend the availability of foods were sophisticated. Fish could be dried or salted, meat smoked or preserved in fat, fruits dried or made into preserves with honey. Grains stored properly could last years. Beer and wine provided not just pleasure, but preserved calories and nutrients. The royal kitchens had extensive storage facilities, carefully organized and maintained, allowing them to draw on preserved foods when fresh ingredients were unavailable or insufficient. The international character of royal Egyptian cuisine is evident in the ingredients and techniques employed. Spices imported from Asia, wine from Crete, olive oil from Mediterranean islands. The royal kitchens drew on resources from throughout the ancient world. This wasn't just about luxury, though that was certainly part of it, but about the interconnectedness of ancient civilizations, the trade networks that moved goods across vast distances, the cultural exchanges that occurred when peoples met and mingled.
The influence of Egyptian cuisine on surrounding cultures was substantial. When foreign princes came to Egypt for education or diplomatic missions, when Egyptian princesses married foreign royalty and brought their own cooks with them, when traders and travelers carried Egyptian foods and recipes to distant lands, Egyptian culinary traditions spread. The elaborate bread-making techniques, the beer brewing methods, the meat preservation strategies, These and other Egyptian innovations influenced food cultures throughout the ancient world. The decline of the Egyptian royal kitchen tradition came gradually, as Egypt's political independence waned, as Persian, then Greek, then Roman influences transformed Egyptian culture. But even as Egypt became a province of foreign empires, echoes of the ancient royal cuisine persisted. The basic foods, bread and beer and onions, remained staples. The techniques of preservation and preparation, refined over millennia, continued to be practiced. The understanding that food is more than mere fuel, that it connects to culture, to religion, to identity. This survived even as political structures changed. The archaeological evidence for ancient Egyptian royal food preparation is substantial and continuing to grow. Tomb paintings show kitchen workers preparing food, bread being baked, beer being brewed, animals being butchered. Actual food remains have been found preserved in tombs, bread loaves 3,000 years old, dried fish, jars of honey that's still technically edible. Written records, inventory lists, recipes, religious texts that mention food offerings all provide insights into how ancient Egyptians thought and prepared food. Modern attempts to recreate ancient Egyptian cuisine have yielded fascinating results. When researchers follow ancient recipes using authentic ingredients and techniques, they discover foods that are genuinely delicious, sophisticated in flavor, complex in preparation. This isn't primitive or simple cooking, but highly developed cuisine, the result of thousands of years of refinement and innovation. The ancient Egyptians were not just surviving, they were creating food cultures of remarkable sophistication and appeal. The lessons we might draw from ancient Egyptian royal food preparation are numerous. The importance of using quality ingredients, the value of specialized expertise, the need for careful planning and coordination, the recognition that food is more than just nutrition, the understanding that eating is a social and cultural act laden with meaning. These insights, which the Egyptians developed through millennia of practice, remain relevant to our modern relationship with food. Perhaps most importantly, the ancient Egyptian approach to food reminds us that eating should be a pleasure, an art, a connection to others and to the past. The care taken in the royal kitchens, the respect shown to ingredients and to the people who would consume the prepared food, the attention to beauty and presentation, these reflect a worldview that valued quality over speed, craftsmanship over convenience, tradition over innovation for its own sake. The quiet dedication of workers like the fish apprentice, spending years learning a craft, taking pride in doing work well, finding satisfaction in serving others through their skill, this too offers lessons. In our modern world of instant gratification and constant change, the ancient Egyptian model of patient apprenticeship, of mastery gained through time and practice, of knowledge passed from generation to generation, seems almost countercultural. But perhaps it's precisely because these values are countercultural that they're worth contemplating. As we drift toward the end of our journey through the royal kitchens of ancient Egypt, we might imagine one more scene. It's late evening, the day's work finally complete, the kitchen's quiet and clean, ready for tomorrow's cycle to begin. Ptamis makes his final rounds, checking that all is secure, that fires are properly banked, that food is safely stored. He pauses in the center of the main kitchen, looks around at the space that has been his life for so many years. Tomorrow, and the next day, and the next, the work will continue. Bread will be baked, beer brewed, meat roasted, fish grilled. Workers will arrive before dawn and labor through the day, each performing their role,
contributing their skill, maintaining the traditions that have defined Egyptian cuisine for thousands of years. And somewhere among them, a young apprentice will be learning, making mistakes, developing expertise, beginning the long journey toward mastery. The cycle continues, unchanging in its essence even as individual workers come and go, as techniques are refined, as new ingredients become available. The royal kitchens of Egypt are not just a place, but a tradition, a living connection to the past, a daily enactment of values and beliefs that have sustained Egyptian civilization through millennia. And now, as the last lamp is extinguished, as darkness settles over the kitchen, as the workers sleep and prepare for another day, we too can rest. We've witnessed the elaborate preparation of a royal meal, understood something of the skill and dedication it required, appreciated the complexity of this ancient food system. Tomorrow, the kitchens will wake again, but for now, there is only peaceful darkness and the quiet satisfaction of work well done, and the gentle anticipation of tomorrow's bread rising, tomorrow's fish grilling, tomorrow's continuation of traditions as old as Egypt itself. The fire embers glow softly in their beds of ash, holding warmth for tomorrow's rekindling. Outside, the Nile flows on its eternal course, the same river that nourished the fields, that produced the grain, that became the bread that fed Pharaoh, connecting earth and water and sun and human labor in an unbroken cycle of abundance. The stars wheel overhead, unchanging, as they have witnessed for millennia the rise and fall of kingdoms, the lives of countless workers, the preparation of innumerable meals. In this moment, between the completion of today's work and the beginning of tomorrow's, there is peace. The royal kitchen sleeps, but it will wake. It always wakes. And when it does, the cycle will begin again. Bread dough will rise, fires will be lit, fish will be cleaned, and somewhere a young apprentice will take another step toward mastery, continuing the ancient tradition of feeding the divine King of Egypt with food prepared with skill, with care, with reverence, with love. Sleep now as they sleep, knowing that tomorrow the work continues, the tradition persists. The royal kitchens of ancient Egypt carry forward their timeless mission of transforming raw ingredients into nourishment for body and soul, of maintaining through food the cosmic order that sustains all of creation, of honoring through their daily labor the gods and the Pharaoh and the great civilization of the Nile that has endured, will endure, eternal as the river itself.